It starts with the energy of the studio, the audience buzzing in seats, awaiting the arrival of the special guest. The host, radiant in her usual warmth, welcomes viewers with her trademark charm. Then she teases a segment. You'll hear from a music legend today. Backstage, Stephanie Mills prepares, adjusting mic, taking a steadying breath, steeling herself for what may come. She's smiling, cordial, ready to share, but tension lies beneath. The cameras roll, lights blaze, and the live show begins. The air hums with expectation as Sherri Shepherd launches into her intro. She frames Stephanie Mills as a guest whose career spans decades, whose voice shaped R&B and Broadway. The applause builds. Stephanie enters, waves, sits. They exchange polite pleasantries. The audience welcomes her warmly. The host mentions their history, the respect she holds for Mills. The guest nods, offering gratitude. But the host hints at some things to address, subtle foreshadowing. The conversation begins lightly, with discussion of recent projects, the guest's upcoming appearances. Slowly, the tone shifts. The host asks a question that feels innocuous, about creative control or opinions in the music industry. But Stephanie senses an edge. She answers cautiously, choosing words with care. Her voice, measured but firm, indicates she does not appreciate being led down a trap. Sherri nods, probing further, pressing for anecdotes or inside stories. The guest begins to pull back. The audience leans and tension thickens. Sherri, sensing resistance, leans in with a follow-up. Well, don't you think you owe something to your fans for letting them in on the real you? The phrasing carries an undertone. Stephanie's eyes flicker. She answers diplomatically, insisting transparency matters, but she also asserts boundaries. Sherri interrupts gently, challenging her to open up, to say more. At this point, the balance of power tilts. Respectful interviewers probe, but this seems like prodding. The host tramps the pressure, asking about personal criticisms, conflicts, past rumors. Stephanie's face tightens. She declines to repeat rumors, says she prefers to dwell on her artistry. But Sherri persists, pressing on, is it true this or that? The audience senses the clash. The back and forth intensifies. Stephanie's patience frays. She pauses, takes a breath, glances away, gathers composure. The host perceives guardedness as evasiveness. She leans forward, voice insistent, pushing, but you've made statements in interviews, so why not clarify them now? Stephanie's expression changes, polite firmness gives way to visible frustration. The audience hushes. The host tramps the query further, suggesting there's public interest, speculation, people want answers. Stephanie's lips press together. At that moment, Stephanie says quietly, I came here to talk about my music, not to dissect every rumor or gossip. Her voice holds a steel underneath courtesy. Sherri, surprised, softly counters, I'm just doing my job, asking questions people want to hear. The guest's eyes bore into her. The audience is tense. The host shifts, okay, but help us understand, and the interrupts things. Stephanie rises slightly in her seat, tone sharper, no, I will not be cornered on unverified statements. Her hands gesture for calm. The host protests, I'm not cornering you, I'm offering a platform. But Stephanie, wounded, says, not like this. The energy flips. The host's smile falters. The audience murmurs. A hush descends. Sherri leans back, momentarily taken aback. She says, all right, let's change direction. She attempts to pivot to a safer topic, her musical influences, her touring plans. But Stephanie, still tense, responds curtly. The host tries to soothe, I respect your boundaries. Yet the guest's posture is stiff. She's no longer comfortable. The host launches a softer question, what's next for you? What excitement lies ahead? Stephanie's tone returns, calmer but guarded. She speaks about upcoming shows, her approach to connecting with fans. The host nods, relieved the conflict seems diffused. The audience listens attentively, as the conversation seems to reset. But then Sherri circles back subtly, referencing earlier remarks. You mentioned critics, so some say you've been defensive at times. That phrase, defensive, snaps something. Stephanie's face flickers. She interrupts, I know who I am. I don't need critiques about defensiveness. The host presses, Many public figures face scrutiny, hoping to soften it. But the damages don't. The guest feels provoked. Stephanie's voice rises. There are lines you don't cross under the guise of vague questions. The audience gasps softly. The host, startled, says she didn't intend offense. Stephanie shakes her head. She says, I respect this show, but I'm not here to be made uncomfortable. The host attempts apology, but the guest holds firm. The tension escalates. The host attempts to calm the moment, asking again gently, let's talk about your new project. But Stephanie cuts in, I cannot continue like this. Her tone is resolute. The host stammers, wait, what do you mean? The guest stands. Her posture is poised but her face shows resolve. The studio is silent. The audience watches, stunned. Stephanie says plainly, I'm done here. This is not respectful. She strides toward the exit. The host, scrambling, attempts to intercede. Please stay. We can adjust it. But Stephanie shakes her head. She turns, walks off set. The audience murmurs. The host is left mid-question, stunned. The segment ends prematurely. The cameramen scramble to follow. The host remains seated, jaw dropped, uncertain what's next. The audience applauds half-heartedly, in shock. Off-mic voices scramble. The producers move behind. The host asks the floor director, cut, cue to thank you, folks. The energetic control of the show collapses. The guest is gone. The studio empties with murmur. Backstage, Stephanie paces in a hallway, taking deep breaths. Crew members whisper, checking mix, communication. The silence is thick. The control room scrambles to recover. The host retreats off stage, reeling from what just happened. The audience in the studio breaks into chatter. The show's producers confer urgently behind the scenes. The host emerges minutes later into the studio, addressing audience, I apologize for that abrupt ending. We'll take a short break. The audience's reaction is mixed. Sympathy, confusion, curiosity. Cameras cut to commercials. The viewers at home swirl in intrigue. Social media begins to light up. Clips will circulate. Headlines will form. During the break, the producers convene with the host. She is shaken, defensive. They discuss whether to rebook or comment. The audience waits in the studio, uneasy. The energy is off. When the show returns, the host addresses the viewers with forced grace, promising to regroup. But the earlier clash lingers in the air. As the show closes, the host apologizes to the audience again, expresses regret that the conversation ended prematurely, but says she respects boundaries. She thanks viewers, invites them back tomorrow. The credits roll. The live energy has frayed. The studio empties. The crew begins to hear don't. The echoes of confrontation follow the day. Later, a press release leaks. Guest walked off show after disagreement over certain lines of questioning. Speculation mounts. Insiders whisper about editorial direction, control, fairness. Social media users debate who was right. Some defend Stephanie's stand, others say the host was doing her job. The narrative multiplies. Clips of the walk-off go viral. Fans of Stephanie Mills rally, praising her integrity, refusing to be dragged into sensationalism. Others critique the host's approach, accusing sensational tactics. Industry watchers weigh the ethics of live talk show interviews. Some suggest the host overstepped. Others caution guests to expect tough questions. The clash becomes part of the commentary. Media outlets publish recaps, dissecting each moment. Some frame the host as too aggressive, others frame the guest as uncooperative. Analysts debate where the line lies between probing journalism and invasive interrogation. Interviews with staff behind the scenes leak. She was visibly uncomfortable. The segment becomes a case study. Meanwhile, Stephanie's team issues a statement. She came to talk music, not gossip. They expressed regret the show devolved, thanked loyal fans, and reaffirmed her commitment to artistic integrity. The host's team responds diplomatically, lamenting that the tension escalated unexpectedly, that no offense was intended. The public discourse intensifies. In subsequent days, interviewers press both parties for reflections. Sherri speaks about her role, apologizes if misinterpreted the tone. She states she never meant disrespect. Stephanie remains more reserved, offering limited comment, emphasizing that boundaries matter. The media frames it as a clash of personalities and professional limits. Commentary shows replay the walk-off. Pundits dissect body language, words exchanged, deciding who won the exchange. Clips loop the moment Stephanie stands and leaves. Some criticize talk shows' tendency to frame conflict for ratings. Others argue guests must endure tough questions. The moment lingers in public memory. For Stephanie Mills, the incident becomes part of her legacy of strength. Fans see it as a refreshing refusal to be manipulated. She continues with her performances, tours, reconnects with audiences. She uses the episode as a statement about respect. The media gradually moves on, but the event remains a landmark moment in her interview history. For Sherri Shepherd, the incident is a moment of reflection. She reviews her approach, considers boundaries, acknowledges when lines are crossed. She may adjust her interviewing style, particularly with sensitive guests. The episode becomes a lesson in balancing curiosity and respect under pressure of live television. Over time, the video of the confrontation accrues millions of views. Clips shared on social media, talk shows reference it. It becomes part of pop culture conversation about celebrity interviews, power dynamics, and boundaries. The narrative evolves. Layers of interpretation added. Fans debate, discuss, revisit the moment. In retrospection, the walk-off is remembered less as scandal and more as a turning point, a musician refusing to be a spectacle under the guise of conversation. It raises questions about what celebrity interviews should and should not do. It underscores that respect and dignity must not be sacrificed for sensational content. The clash becomes symbolic. And so the moment stands. A legendary artist stood up, walked off, making clear that some lines cannot be crossed even on live television. The host was left stunned, the public left to ponder. The story echoes beyond that day, a vivid reminder that exposure and respect must coexist, and that even on live TV, nobody should be forced into a gotcha territory.